Hey guys, so this video is going to be a little process video of how I did the new Daily Bumps intro. If you don't know who the Daily Bumps are, they're a family of daily vloggers, and I made their last intro and they want a new one, so I'm working on it. Here are just some sketches of ideas for different mouth shapes I could do, different eye shapes, and different hands. And then I just did some pose sketches and framing sketches. They're so bad you probably can't even tell what half of it is, but I could understand it, so it worked. And then on the back I just planned out what the front of the house could look like and what the interior of the kitchen could look like. So I'm animating in the program Toon Boom Animate Pro, which is professional animation software. I don't know it that well. I did have a Toon Boom class in school, but we just barely scratched the surface because my animation program mostly focused on 3D animation. So I had to try to relearn it after not using it for 2 years, so it was a little tricky. Right here, I'm drawing different eyebrow shapes. And what this program lets you do is I can draw multiple eyebrows, and then there's a little slider on the side that I can use to swap between the different eyebrow shapes. And I can do that for any drawing. I can swap between different eyes and stuff like that. That's why I made that little sketch sheet of possible eye and mouth shapes, was so I could make sure to draw them all. And then I combined this character rig where I just rotate body parts. Instead of having to redraw the character all the time, I just rotate body parts. And it was similar to that in Photoshop, but each body part's on a separate layer, and it's not a cohesive rig like it is in this program. And these aren't actual rigs with bones and stuff for anyone who's familiar with animation. This is just super basic, lining up the body parts. I parent them to each other so that if you move the torso, the arms and the head move with it, that kind of thing. And then I set the pivot point so that the joints bend at the proper spots. And then I can move the entire body, I can move just the head. As you can see there, it gives me a lot of options. So that's pretty much how I assembled the little rigs. And then here I'm starting on animation for Brian. And what's really cool about this program is it's actually a vector animation program, which means you can zoom in as much as you want on the character and it will not get blurry. Whereas things like Photoshop, those are bitmap programs that use pixels. Vector programs use curves and a bunch of fancy math to calculate your lines, so you can zoom in as much as you want and it doesn't get blurry. And I can even animate the camera like you see me doing here. And one thing I did was I placed the backgrounds and the foreground on different planes. So when the image zooms in, you see some parallax, and that just helps give it a lot more dimension. Here's the house. The initial idea was we would zoom into the windows of the house, you'd see a scene, it would zoom out and then go into a different window. And we ended up scrapping that idea, and I think it works out a lot better because it saves time by not doing it, and I think the house looks ugly and just things like that. So this is a little sample of what it could have looked like, but we ended up not going with that idea. And then here I'm sketching out a background for Missy's scene. She's at her vanity, and so I'm just sketching that out and coloring it and stuff. But we actually ended up scrapping the whole cartoon background idea and went instead with real life photographs of their house and even a video at the end. And so the idea is that these little characters are sort of like borrowers, and they're inside the house and they're little miniatures. And so instead of it just being a cartoon, it's more like these little cartoon characters that live inside the real world. So I think that was an awesome idea by Brian, and it just made everything look so much better. I didn't really like the kitchen background that I made. The vanity, I liked how it turned out, but I just think it looks so much better with the real pictures. Plus it saved me time. I didn't have to draw the rest of the backgrounds, and I suck at doing really geometric drawings like backgrounds, and so it was kind of like, whew, don't have to do that anymore. So then we have this shot of Missy at the vanity from behind, and then there's actually a side shot that pans up. She's sitting on a stack of makeup, and then there's this shot here. And the reason we added the shot of her from behind is because you couldn't really tell, like looking here, would you know she's at her vanity? Maybe, but maybe not. It's not quite clear. So we needed that establishing shot so you know for sure she's at her vanity. And then I added little things like puffs, the powder from her makeup, just little touches like that to try to make the animation more interesting and fun. And so I did those by just animating little puff balls, and then I added transparency and blur to make it look a little bit more like powder. I feel like these video clips are going by so fast and I'm not saying everything I want to say and I'm going to forget about things. Here's the network window. I actually use this all the time. You just don't see it because it's on a second monitor that I have. Yeah, it's not being screen captured, so you can only see what I'm doing in one monitor, but that's how the Missy animation turned out. So next, moving on to Ollie, he's jumping on the couch and then he jumps down into a pile of toys. And I think this one turned out pretty cute. Oh, I just want to say a note about these programs. If you're someone who uses these programs professionally, you're probably cringing at my workflow and everything that I do, but I'm kind of noobish, so please be nice to me. So, okay, I'm just going to explain a little bit more about the program. So on the bottom of the screen, on the left-hand side, you can see there's a whole stack of text. Those are the layers. So a hand is on its own layer, a forearm is on its own layer, the upper arm is on its own layer, etc., etc. And then beside that, you can see those dots and lines. Those are all the keys. So anytime there's a dot, that's where I set a key. So I can say, okay, frame 1, I want Ollie to be here. And then I move the time slider to frame 20 and I move Ollie to a new position. And then if you hit play, it'll automatically in between him from one frame to the next. I mean, it's not true in betweening, it's just like a linear motion from one frame to the other. And then I can add my own little in-betweens to make the animation more interesting. But what's cool about this is you can just grab some keys. So let's say, oh, 20 frames is too long, we want it to be only 15 frames. You can grab all the keys at frame 20 and drag them over, and you don't have to redo your animation, you're just changing the timing. And so I really like, you know, that's a lot better than trying to animate in Photoshop and it's just much better. The workflow is much faster doing it this way. I actually got the intro done in 2 weeks, whereas the first one took me a whole month. Although I did work more hours back then at my day job, but still, this was just much smoother workflow, so much better. And I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of these toys are actual toys Ollie has. Some of them are made up, but I tried to make a bunch of them actual stuff they have in their house. And he jumps in the pile and some of the toys go flying. And so there's some toys that are each on their own layer, and then there's a base stack of toys that he just, like you can see it's one piece and it just squashes and stretches as he lands in it. And I also added some bounce to the other toys. When they hit the ground, they squash and stretch too. But then once I added the camera move, you actually don't see them hit the ground. So I was like, oh, you don't see the squish, but that's just the way it is. I usually add the camera at the end. I'll do the proper framing at the beginning, but then the camera is always going to zoom in on them. And so I don't do that until later because it's just hard to animate when the camera is flashing like in and out at you. It's just kind of annoying. So I typically add that at the end. So yeah, he jumps and he falls and he lands in the toys. So cute. And now we're moving on to Karma. For Karma, I have the toilet background and then I cut out a front piece of the toilet. As you can kind of see it flashing by, and that piece is just to mask Karma. So when his face is in the toilet, that piece is blocking his mouth so it looks like he's actually leaning into the toilet. I did the same thing with Missy in the vanity. I cut out the mirror and then put her between the frame of the mirror and the actual background of the mirror. Oh, and just another note about the Missy thing is I animated the foreground Missy and the background Missy separately. So I animated the Missy you see in the mirror, and then I had to match the foreground Missy, like match the movement. So it was just kind of like, no, I have to animate it again. Although it's much quicker because you're really only seeing her hair. Anyway, so for Karma, I really struggled to get him to get down into the toilet because he's miniature, which makes it hard. Plus, the rig was just not really built to get in there. And so I had to redraw his torso so that his neck goes in at a different angle. And I also had to put his front legs into the bowl. Otherwise, he can't get low enough so that his nose gets blocked. Because we can assume the water level is right to the top, but even assuming that, it was really hard to get his nose past the edge of the toilet. So after a lot of tweaking, I finally managed to do it. And by the way, these clips I'm showing, these are just tiny segments of what I animated. This is not the full process sped up. These are just tiny little bits. And then Karma shakes. And this was a little tricky because when dogs shake, they actually twist their heads side to side. But he can't do that. He's a little 2D figure and his head only can rotate up and down like he's nodding. So I had to just add lots of overlap, and I made sure to close his eyes, add some water drops, just make it really clear that he's shaking. Plus, once Brian added the sound effects, it just made it, you know, it made it clear what he's doing. So he drinks the water, shakes, and then that is it. Bad boy karma. So now I'm going to show some behind the scenes stuff of the group shot. I'm going to just show a few clips from the video they sent me. They did a bunch of takes for this little end bit, and then I picked the one I liked best, but I thought I would just throw in a few extra clips so you can see a bit more behind the scenes.
Look, Ollie, look over here.
Look at Mama's. Let's go see Mama's.
Come here. I have something cool for you. Oh, you want a cracker?
Look at that.
Here. There you go. Put things in the most random place so I'll never find them again. We're looking right there.
Yeah,
okay.
we're gonna like look at them, react, cheer,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna give them a high five. Okay?
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Yay!
All right, so that was the shot I picked, and now I'm putting the characters into the scene and animating them. And this actually ended up changing. We ended up putting Karma on the other side. So I didn't think I recorded me switching that up, but it does change at the very end, you'll see. And so the idea is the littles, that's what they're called, they're sitting on the table, and then Brian and Missy and Ollie see them and they wave at them, and then Missy's belly pops because she's pregnant, and everyone's like, oh, yay, and celebration. So this one was quite a bit of work because there's a lot of characters, and it was the longest of all the scenes. And then here you see Brian twisting all Paper Mario style. And that's because the rig wasn't built for him to turn. So I had to just draw some in-between drawings that are not part of the rig at all. And this was kind of a daunting task because I was like, okay, this could turn out okay, or this could look absolutely horrible. And I think it turned out all right in the end, but if you pause, like, look at this. You can, if you pause the intro and look at his faces, you're going to be scarred for life. He's quite off model, but I just wanted to get it done quickly. I was like, you know what? It's 3 drawings. They're going to flash by so quickly. They don't need to look perfect. Oh no, the music's playing. I thought I had that muted. Anyway, so I added some nice in-between drawings there, moved Karma to the other side, and then it was done. So here's a look at the final intro. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I really like how this turned out. I think it's definitely a step up from the first intro, and I like it because there's a bunch of separate scenes, and I'm going to actually be animating more scenes for the intro, and they can be swapped out for each other. It's kind of like mix and match. Brian can make the intro different whenever he wants by throwing in a different clip for a character. So I think it's going to be pretty cool, and I hope you guys like the intro. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.